Between radioactivity, death rays, and intergalactic crystals,
the world's biggest explosion is definitely something worth exploring, and as for what caused it, pretty wild theories.
On June 30th of 1908, an inexplicable explosion as powerful as 12 million tons of TNT lit up the skies near the Podjamanaya Tunguska River in Russia, killing an estimated 3 civilians, although some people believe it decimated an entire village, and it also took out over 5,000 acres of forest area. Not only that, but the trees and soil were radioactively burnt. This is what came to be known as the Tunguska event. It was and still is the largest impact event to take place on Earth in recorded history. Hundreds of times more powerful than the atomic weapons dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima combined. The explosion registered at seismic stations all across Eurasia, and airwaves from the blast were detected all the way from Russia to Germany, Denmark, Croatia, Dutch East Indies, and even Washington, D.C. In some places, the shock was equivalent to an earthquake measuring of 5 on the Richter scale, and people living in villages nearby claim to have seen a pillar of fire reaching up into the sky. In the days that followed the event, the skies above Asia and Europe were illuminated, never going fully dark. While it was originally assumed that a massive meteor had crash landed on Earth, it was later revealed that something had exploded at an altitude of 5 to 10 kilometers above the ground. Also, eyewitnesses never mentioned seeing a meteor falling from the sky, so what the heck could have caused such devastation? We have some theories.
Really, the next question is, though, did the government attempt to downplay the whole thing? Did they not want people to know the real story? See, people have been questioning the circumstances of the event ever since it happened because there's never really been a solid explanation. The closest we've ever gotten is that it was caused by an asteroid or meteoroid, but there was no impact crater and no leftover material. On top of that, people reported seeing a blue light in the sky right before the bang. Like, what the hell was that about? It really doesn't seem like a stretch to say the Russian government was hiding or downplaying something that happened or something they even had a direct hand in themselves. Were they testing something? Did they find something they didn't want the world to know about? Something to do with extraterrestrials, perhaps? More on that from Hannah.
Well, the crystal remains of an unknown technical device sure do point to aliens. In the early 2000s, a story broke when a researcher named Yuri Lavbin claimed to have found several strange crystal blocks which had originally been discovered in the blast zone region. Some of the crystals had incredibly intricate pictures on them, and some had very precise holes. Because of the crystal's nature and the fact that no technology on Earth has the capability to carve crystals with such precision, Yuri believes that they must be of alien origin and furthermore likely belonged to an extraterrestrial technical device. A few years later, Yuri Lavin also credited whatever piece of technology the crystals came from with being the reason for humanity's continued existence, theorizing that an alien spacecraft had actually purposefully collided with a meteor so that it would explode above the Earth rather than crash into it, securing the end of humanity as we know it. While the opinions of Yuri are controversial, they are quite popular amongst the UFO community, and we personally here at Most Amazing Top 10 appreciate them as well.
Did Nikola Tesla cause the Tunguska event? On the day of the incident, Nikola Tesla was reportedly conducting a major experiment on the other side of the world. He was attempting to transmit vast amounts of electricity through the atmosphere. Firing up the generators, Tesla sent millions of volts of electricity into the sky, and apparently when he checked his equipment after the test, he said the exact words, "Uh-oh." One of Tesla's most mysterious inventions is the Tesla death ray. The idea of a directed energy weapon existed before Tesla, but if anyone could create it, it was gonna be him. The death ray technology was supposedly based on Tesla's high-frequency electricity experiments, where he believed energy could be wirelessly transmitted over long distances to a specific target. Tesla had apparently envisioned a portable generator powering the weapon, capable of destroying anything in its path. Armies, fleets, tanks, and even cities from a great distance. So, though no one officially saw the death ray in action, Tesla claimed his prototype worked. He'd even written letters to the New York Times talking about the invention's potential.
You know what's weird? The fact that 2 weeks prior to the Tunguska event, many people encountered something incredibly strange. Another event that took place in the skies above Karlinski, a small village near where the Tunguska explosion took place. Many villagers claim to have witnessed a white, heavenly body in the sky that appeared to be under intelligent control, and for some reason in the shape of a pipe. The light hovered in the sky for about 10 minutes before the sound of military weapons fire went off in the distance. In that moment, the bright light faded into a smoky gray before disappearing into a ball of smoke. Moments later, the ground began to shake before flames and bizarre shapes appeared across the skies above where the original light had been seen. Whether or not the events of that day are connected to the Tunguska blast are unknown, but it just seems like too big of a coincidence for the two not to be connected.
Some think the Russian government was directly involved in causing the incident, not just attempting to downplay it. The Tunguska blast was so powerful that it seemed like it couldn't have been just a natural event. So one theory is that the Russian government had been working on a top secret military experiment that went wrong. Or maybe it went exactly like they expected it to. Something causing this level of destruction would be a pretty powerful weapon. It's pretty obvious why they'd want to keep something like this a secret. Admitting it would mean revealing your powerful new weapon to the world. Not only would they be giving away military secrets, but it could have led to international panic. Plus, there would be huge backlash for causing such a destructive event, even if it was accidental. Plus, the remoteness makes for a pretty ideal spot to test something like this. The explosion had happened right in the middle of a highly populated urban area. I probably wouldn't be entertaining this theory as much. At least, I'd like to think the government wouldn't intentionally harm mass amounts of their own population in order to test a new weapon. But I don't know, maybe I'm just being, positive?
Copper cauldrons causing illness and firing off fireballs into the Russian Valley of Death. What does this have to do with the Tunguska event? Maybe nothing, but also maybe everything. The Valley of Death, located near where the Tunguska event took place, has been the subject of Russian legends for centuries. The valley was once a route for traders and smugglers, and apparently it was also home to many copper cauldron-like structures that stuck out of and into the ground that had large openings, big enough for both a man and his horse to enter into, which sounds great for weary travelers. I mean, free shelter, right? The only problem is those who spent the night in one of the many fabled copper cauldrons would later become incredibly ill, suffering from symptoms incredibly similar to those experienced by someone with radiation poisoning. Also, some people claim that on occasion the cauldrons would shoot balls of intense fire into the sky, and that they were active on the morning of July 30th of 1908. Could they have possibly been responsible for the event? I mean, between the radioactive properties and the fact that a fireball is exactly what was witnessed exploding above the ground at the time in which the Tunguska event took place, it's definitely a possibility. And if you're wondering why then have we not seen these cauldrons or heard of these cauldrons, I think the answer is pretty clear. 2 words: government cover-up.
Alright, a super wild theory is that the Tunguska event may have been caused by a black hole, which sounds nuts coming out of my mouth, sounded nuts reading it, but here we are. So it may be totally nuts, I just can't deny how interested I am in this one. The theory that a small black hole collided with the planet started being talked about in 1973 by American physicists. They theorized that a small black hole actually passed through the planet, which they said could have explained the lack of an impact crater and possibly the explanation for that mysterious blue light witnesses reported seeing in the sky right before the explosion. These physicists actually put forth that this black hole would have shot right through the planet and out the other side, which again is nuts, but an incredibly fun idea. As the team wrote in their paper, the black hole would enter the Earth, and the rigidity of the rock would allow no underground shockwave because of its high velocity, and because it loses only a small fraction of its energy in passing through the Earth, the black hole should very nearly follow a straight line through the Earth, entering at 30 degrees to the horizon and leaving through the North Atlantic. End quote. Unfortunately though, there's never been any evidence found of an exit wound, quote unquote.
While these theories are all good and fun, I feel as though I would be remiss not to mention the most obvious scientific explanation, and that is that a 650-foot asteroid almost wiped out an incredibly significant amount of life on Earth. With the asteroid traveling some 435 miles through the atmosphere, it kind of makes sense why it may have never actually made impact with the Earth and instead just exploded a bunch of times across the sky before evaporating just 5 to 10 kilometers above the ground in Russia. It is likely that this asteroid asteroid was made of a stony iron that kept its form until the very last moment, disintegrating fully just prior to impact. While this is the leading scientific theory, there are quite a few holes in this explanation. One, asteroids aren't that radioactive. I mean, some of them are a little bit, but like, there was a lot of radioactivity going on around the blast site. Two, how did we get so lucky as to have the entire thing completely dissipate just moments before impact? And three, what were those strange events leading up to the blast all about? I don't know, you guys, it seems like a pretty shaky theory to me. I feel like science is gonna have to take the back seat on this one.
Here's another really cool possible explanation: an antimatter collision. Astrophysicist Philip J. Wyatt wrote a paper in 1958 theorizing this. According to this theory, instead of a regular asteroid having exploded over Siberia as it plummeted into the atmosphere, maybe it was an antimatter comet or meteoroid. But what exactly is an antimatter comet? Well, we don't really know if these things exist. They're hypothetical, but the idea is that there could be comets and meteoroids composed entirely of antimatter. Scientists have described them as possible explanations for a bunch of different mysterious phenomena, including the Tunguska event. So what would have happened? Pretty simple, really. When antimatter and regular matter meet, it causes an explosion.
That was a pretty explosive video with some pretty good theories.
We'll catch you next time.
That we will.